Well, what's up, kids? Welcome back to another live at 3 o'clock. As you can see, we are working our way into the studio. What I show you behind me, it's starting to come together. As I look over to this disaster to my right, there's still a lot of work to do. So I'll give you a little sneak peek. Yeah, just nothing but utter chaos down that direction. But this end's starting to come into focus a little bit. It's scary how much work we've already put in, but that makes us really realize how much work is still left to be done. Whew. It's always easier to take it apart than to put it back together. That's for damn certain, especially when we're going to be upgrading a few things here and there. One of which being, this may be one of the last times that y'all see that toolbox. We're going to replace it. I've run out of room, so it's time to get a larger one. Why not? Why not? New beginnings or a restart. All right, guys and girls, let's flip around to anything I missed or while I was going to research for this week and anything that was sent in. Now, I know we're getting closer to finally getting that email set up to where it will be easier for all of you to send your questions directly to me. Well, directly to me and Hank and a few other folks, and then they will get funneled down to me. All right, there was one that I just finished doing a little bit of research on from Phil Myers from last Friday. He has a 2008 Arctic Cat 400 4x4, and the problem he's having, the front seal on the engine that goes up to the front differential, it needs to be replaced. And his question was, can that be done without pulling the motor? And the short answer is yes, but it's still a huge pain in the butt because coming straight out of the front of that engine, it actually has a U-joint. So you would need to disassemble the U-joint and then pull that bolt on or release that nut. I think it's going to be a nut on the end of that, remove the U-joint, pop out the seal, and then tap in the new one. Now, the trick is you're not going to have a whole lot of room to do any of this. But from what I've been able to gather, the manual wasn't that clear because, of course, the manual shows the engine sitting on a teardown bench. Well, yeah, anybody can do that. You put the frame around it with everything else, and then it becomes a little bit more of a challenge. But the short answer is, Phil, I think it can be done. I looked around at a couple of different forums. They seem to think it can be done as well. It's just not easy to do. So good luck with that one. Hopefully it goes smooth. Regina had sent in a question, and I've changed everything, wiring a harness all the way throughout the bike, starter solenoid, and my push to start still doesn't work. Can you please help? All right, Regina, I'm going to scold you a little bit here. Now, if you're going to send me a question, what do I have to have before I can even start? Year, make, and model. So there's so many directions that you could go to determine what's going wrong. I mean, but I have to at least know that to where I can guide you. So please send it back in. Give me your year, make, and model, and I'll be glad to give it a shot. But me saying anything right now really wouldn't apply because I don't know what application we're dealing with. All right, Lucky Collins. I happen to be having a leak from my clutch lever on my 2007 CBR 1000RR, and I believe it may be because of a worn-out boot. Does the boot have anything to do besides acting as a dust cover? Well, honestly, that's all it does. Right now, it's just acting as a little catch and funnel for evidently there's going to be a blown seal on the inside of it. And seal's probably not the right terminology. Inside your master cylinder, you're going to have a piston, and it's going to have a couple of seals or O-rings around it, and that's what allows it to build up pressure inside that cylinder and then send it down to the clutch in your case. So, for the most part, on every Honda I've ever looked at, you can buy just a rebuild kit. But there is a caveat to that. If water has gotten into your system, and that being an older unit, a 2007, it's possible that it could have damaged the cylinder itself inside. I mean, the kit, you'll have a new piston and a new spring and the new seals on it. But if that cylinder has rusted or any type of pitting that's going on inside of it, it's really not going to get you very far for very long. Sure, it may work for a while, but that pitting is going to act like a bunch of little razor blades, and it's going to cut up those brand new seals that you're putting inside. So just be aware of that. My advice, go ahead and pull it apart, inspect that cylinder first, and then make a decision if you need to buy the entire unit as an assembly or just the rebuild kit. All right, Preston Atoms. Hey, if your valves are too loose, will it be hard to turn over? No, it should be hard to turn over if you're getting the right amount of compression. Now, if they're too tight and they're not allowing the valves to shut all the way, then yeah, it would be really easy to turn over. But to answer your question, if your valves are too loose, no, it should be the same. It should be difficult to turn over if you have the right compression. Whether the valves are adjusted correctly or too loose, the compression is going to be the same. Does that make sense? Although when you start it up, it's going to make a whole lot of racket. And then if it's that loose, that really means that you're not fully opening up the valves completely. So it's not going to run as well as it should. Rich FJR 1300. I wonder what machine he has. Hi, John. Was watching your video showing how to test regulator rectifiers. What would be the more common type of failure on these? If the node fails on the forward bias portion, what would be the symptom? And if they fail on the reverse bias test, what would be the symptom? I'm thinking one overcharges the battery and one undercharges. Is that right? Well, let's think about what the diodes are actually doing in there. They're preventing current from flowing one direction or another. That's basically all they're doing. So what they're doing is basically inverting that AC signal. They're cutting off the negative aspect of that AC signal, and then we're flipping it up to the top portion, because you basically got a bridge of diodes in the shape of a square where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 on each leg of the output of your stator, and you're going to have 3 of those in most cases. So is it going to make it overcharge or undercharge? No, that really has to do more with the circuitry that handles the amount of voltage or the amplitude of the voltage that it's sending DC out to the battery and the rest of the system itself. I think I go pretty in depth on a couple of those different videos as far as what you're going to see if you test one, if it's a short or an open. But the initial question you have, which is the more common the failure as far as a test, or if it's a short or an open? In my opinion, it has been opens that are usually the downfall of the diodes. All right, well, that catches me up for last week. Let's see what we have for this week. All righty. Nelson Ruiz, saludos desde Ecuador. Hello from Ecuador. Well, salutations from Ecuador. Would that be the correct translation? Well, how are you doing down there, Luis? I hope things are going well. Ruiz, excuse me. Steve in New Zealand, at what stage would you look at doing a piston rings on an LT80? All right, Steve, you're going to have to help me a little bit here. LT80, I'm not familiar with that model. That may be something just indigenous to your country and not here. But in general, your engine's going to tell you. I mean, it'll start running a little bit poorly, won't have quite as much snap to it, but the defining decision will be not just a compression test, which gives you an overall idea of the health of the engine, but the one that's really going to tell you what's going on if the piston and the rings are doing their job, which is sealing up that combustion chamber, is doing a leak down test. So anything I'd say more than 5%, you may want to consider replacing the piston and rings if in fact you are really trying to maximize the performance out of your bike. So leak down test, That's your answer. As far as the number of hours, that varies from machine to machine. You know, at a motocross level, I think they recommend replacing at least the rings every 15 to 20 hours. That would get expensive in a hurry, but you know, I'm not Scott Champion or anything like that, so I don't have to worry about it. Me, back when I used to actually ride higher performance machines, I'd go 50, 60 hours. Man, couple 3 or 4 long weekends, it was time to do something at that point. It's really just determined by how hard you ride and how much that last little bit of the performance is, how important it is to you. Biker TAJ07, how are you doing, sir? I'm doing well, although kind of tired. This place is it's been a blast so far putting it together, but I'm not as young as I once was, so I'm tired. So hopefully I'll just be able to go home and not work on anything. And I was bitching about my engine not being back from the machine shop yet for my car. I'm actually glad that they haven't called me. Yeah. If you're curious who I'm talking to, Tracy's over here hiding. So my plan is to work on it as little as possible, especially when it comes to the mechanical world that I live in. Sometimes even I have to take a break, you know. Brandon B. Hi, John. Excuse me. I have a 400EX blowing oil out the crankcase breather row. Replaced everything, including a new top end with new bored out sleeve, new oil pump, and all screens. All lines are fine also. Well, Brandon, the reason that that's happening on every machine that I've ever seen is when you're getting too much blow by going past the rings into your crankcase, and you know that. So it must still, or I can't think of another way it could get around it. It must still be happening. How did you do your break-in procedure, and did you do it long enough and aggressive enough when you did the rebuild? It could go. It should seal up fairly quickly. We did a couple of different videos on the way I break in different machines. So Hank, if you would drop that in the chat and let Brandon watch it. But anyways, it sounds like she hasn't really sealed up all the way. I would probably recommend, if you're unsure of it, go ahead and do a leak down test, and that's going to tell you what's going on. There's no getting around the leak down test. It is the absolute truth detector, lie detector. So give that a shot and see what it comes out to. Beyond that, maybe just run it a little bit harder, a little bit longer, and see if she seals up like she's supposed to. Also, make very sure, I can't believe I didn't think about this, make sure you haven't overfilled it, because it's kind of a dry sump system, because you've got the engine and the oil in the bottom of it, and then you've got the oil tank as well. So just be very aware of checking the oil in it. I think we have a video on that too. I think that may be video number 1, isn't it, Tracy? From 8 years ago. So take a peek at that. And by the way, Brandon, we're not going to start on it quite yet, but that POS that I haven't really showed y'all yet, 400EX, that's going to be one of the first machines, or I think it's going to be the second machine that we're going to build in here. The powers that be sent me, or I was actually eavesdropping on a conversation Tracy was having with the powers that be. And can I tell them what we're building?
Yeah, go ahead.
I won't tell them who for, but I'm gonna build. Yeah, and I'm not going to say who it is or where it's going, but I'm going to build a pit bike, and I've put in an offer on a pretty beat up looking KLX 110. So that'll be interesting. I'm not going to ride it. I can guarantee you that much. Except for around here, you want to see a fat man in a little coat, watch that delivery thing that we did for that TTR 110 that we gave away. Is it even still listed, or did we? It might be. I couldn't even put my feet on the pegs. I look like I just had a set of outriggers riding around the old warehouse. Oh boy. Johnny Stoltz also came back. Oh, then that's the first question. Johnny Stoltz. What else can cause my bike to smoke? I replaced the piston and rings. I went overboard and also replaced the valve seals. Still blows some blue smoke. All right. Sounds like you've replaced everything except one thing. The valve guides, because if the guides are that worn out, or the piston or the valves themselves, the stems are that worn out, even new seals, it's still gonna let oil shoot up through there potentially, or down through there. There we go. So that may be the way it's doing it, and it's probably going to be doing it on the intake stroke. So when it goes to take a big gulp of air, well, yeah, it's pulling through that passageway going out to your carburetor or throttle body, but it's also going to be trying to pull whatever it can around that, past the seal and past that valve. And if that valve stem and that the guide itself are that worn out, then you're going to have a problem. Go back and think: did you have any play on the valve itself when you were replacing it? But that would be the other place I would think to look. Paul Gravinsky. Hey, how's it going, Paul? I'm telling you, you're going to need to come visit us one Friday once we get this place finished out. Looks deeper in the back. Yep. So that ATV I was talking about last week was a Lina 400. Not familiar with that one. Must be a China reproduction. I tried to look up the cover for the CTV and found it in Poland. Anyway, the insurance company trashed it. Yeah, I can believe that. That would be tough to get parts for. Oh, finally bought an ultrasonic cleaner. Well, see, Paul's got one. Why can't I have one? I have one at the dealership, but I've never had one here. What I really want is one of those Aqua Blast cabinets. If you ever watch M539 Restorations, is a YouTube channel where he does some unbelievable restoration and performance work on BMWs. I'm not even trying to pronounce his name, but I believe it's Seriton. But he has one of those cabinets, and I went to check to see how much they were, and it was pushing about $8,000. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pull that off. Damn, it would be nice. Steve, New Zealand, came back. Suzuki 2005 LT80 two-stroke. Yeah, that's why I don't have any familiarity with that one. Marin Cuso, Stefan, OEM cylinder Renegade 800. Does it have nicasil? I don't think it does, but I can't swear to it. Hank, if you would make a note of that, and I'll look it up. Yeah, give me the year on that one, Stefan, and I can look it up for you. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up for John's knowledge, guys. I'd appreciate that. Thanks. Thanks, Paul. All right. Burke O. I assembled my Honda CRF 450 up to the camshaft. Okay. The chain seems to be too short because the camshaft sprocket doesn't fit on the cam. Millimeters are missing. The chain has not been replaced, and there's no link attached to the bottom. Can you help? I don't get why it doesn't fit. I mean, you've got the tensioner pulled out, don't you? And just making sure. You can't really fight against that thing, because as it adjusts your chain, it doesn't. You can't just push it back in. It's got like little teeth on it. As that little plunger goes out, a little catch holds it, and it goes in a little bit more, and it holds it. So make sure you pull that chain tensioner out. And on that one, that's the one you have to twist in, don't you, Tracy?
On the CRF 150?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So it's kind of annoying to get that piston to go back in there. If you don't retract that piston for the tensioner and just pop it in there, there's no way you can get your chain adjusted or get the sprocket in there correctly.
You have to pull it all the way out.
Shade Larson, ultrasonic cleaner is really good, even for the wife's jewelry. I could pay for it just with that. You should see some of the rocks on her fingers. It's impressive. Whew. Stefan said in a year. Gotcha. Massive overkill. Nicasil coated break-in and the same as others while we're talking about it. That has been a long, I don't want to say battle, but I kind of have, I'm at odds with what a lot of people say. You know, they say that it's just the rings conforming to the cylinder, and I say it's the rings and the cylinder conforming to each other. Now, as far as the break-in period, I treat them the same. That's just my personal preference. Even though it is nicasil and it is very slick and it's a coating, but you can't tell me a little of that doesn't slough off during the break-in procedure. I'd find that hard to believe that it doesn't. Oh,
Brandon B came back before the post of the engine break-in.
okay.
He said he did break it in.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that one. They're sending me a bunch of them today.
Yeah.
Brandon, let me swing back around to yours. It did before and after. I did that before and after the rebuild. Heat cycled it several times. Leak down was less than the 10%. Actually, I like to see it a little bit lower than that. I usually aim for around 5. So I don't think she's sealed up yet. The reason I mentioned running it a little bit longer and taking longer before it seats in, I have a 73 Honda CT90 I did a rebuild on, and you can't get the US piston and rings anymore. The only way you can get them is from Thailand, and the rings are a little bit different, especially the oil ring. Instead of having the spring, if you want to call it that, and then the top and the bottom ring that make up the oil ring, it just has a solid ring of that same thickness of the other 3 rings together. Boy, when I put that thing together, it was like a mosquito sprayer. And I rode it for probably 3 or 4 miles, and it was still just blowing blue smoke everywhere, burning a whole crap load of oil. And I went and ordered another piston, and I was going to, one that was more like the OEM design that Honda had, originally, even though it wasn't from Honda. And I said, well, damn, I don't have time to mess with this thing. So I still loaded it up and took it to another car event with me. And we probably put 10 or 15 miles on it, just running around the racetrack. And the funny thing is, by the end of the day on Sunday, she quit smoking. It took that long before it finally decided it was going to seat everything in and run like it was supposed to. So guess what? That new piston for it is still sitting on my desk. I'm just going to let it ride. So run it a little bit harder and a little bit longer and see what happens. Stefan said, I know when it's used, you can make it bigger for another piston. You're talking about the nicasil? You can recoat it. We did that when we did the 636 kit on our R6 that ended up in that Formula SAE vehicle up at Kennesaw State University. But yeah, that's not something you can do on your own. Do you recall the name of the company that we sent it out to have it replated? I think there's only one. So just to do a search for nicasil replating, and these guys are going to come up. One word of warning, though. When you get it back, the case is going to be dirty. I mean, it is going to need a thorough cleaning, and get yourself a set of thread chasers and go through every single thread on that block or head or whatever. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems. that thing, it was difficult because basically the lower engine cases on the R6, that is your cylinder. So there was a whole bunch of debris and all those different, all those threads that really gave me a fit. And had I prepped it correctly, I probably would have finished that engine in 3 hours less time instead of midnight with the SD cards filling up to the last minute. So just a word of warning if you do get yours replated. Stefan came back, example from 93 to 93. Are we talking about 91 to 93? Are we talking about octane here, Stefan? Did I miss the question up top?
That's the renegade 800.
Okay, the year. Oh yeah, so definitely make a note of that, Hank, and then I'll go back and look. Chances are that's going to be a standard cylinder, though, going back that far. John or Paul said, Mom's bedridden right now, John, so any kind of travel is out of reach at the moment. Believe me, I would love to come check out the studio and the shop. Might even bring a project. Well, we'd be all about that if you want to bring one, but I understand what you're going through, and believe me, we're not even ready yet. So yeah, you go take care of family, and we'll be here. We'll get you down here eventually. Cool. I'll be praying for you both. What is her name, by the way? Stefan, CanAm doesn't make any more OEM cylinder for the 2007 to 13 CanAm 800. Wow, that's rude. So I can see why you're wanting to bore it. Well, bore it, and if it is nicasil, then replate it. And going oversized like that, if Wiseco doesn't make that particular piston or pistons, I know that they can do custom work, and it is a little bit more expensive, but if you can't find it, that's the only way to do it, unless you'd want to go used. And I don't know about you, but I like having new stuff, but just an option. Now, the custom stuff is not something they advertise a lot, but if you give them a call and say, listen, I'd like to have a custom one done, give them the specs on it, or tell them what you're working with, I bet you they crank it out for it. Just don't pass out when they tell you the number. But man, it is what it is. Want to play, got to pay. Jad Walters would be curious to hear John's opinion and perspective on the new Polaris Ranger with the steel belt transmission. Wow. Would you predict better longevity or just wait a few years and see what happens? I'm almost disappointed with myself a little bit. When I was at the dealership level, I would go to all the dealer events every single year, and it was usually this time of year, and it sucked up a bunch of time, but I was up to speed on everything that was coming out. My knowledge of the machines is about 5 years old now. So unfortunately, I didn't know, and nor have I heard about the steel belt transmission, but I'm damn sure interested about it. So we're going to have to look that up. But as far as would I wait a few years to see what happens? Polaris is operating at a level now, they're not going to let something loose unless they've tested the crap out of it. I've been to their facility and went to their test area, their tracks, and out in the woods, and some of the stuff even on the street. These guys, they beat the crap out of everything, because guess what? It's their name on the line. So would I be afraid? No, I wouldn't be afraid at all. But I'm damn sure interested, and I'll be checking it out. Maybe not today, but I'll look into it next week. Patrick K, what do you think? What do you think about Honda Rancher 350 2003 jet kit and exhaust HMF? Well, you know I'm a fan of the Honda Rancher, and I actually still own a 2003 Rancher 350. I beat that thing to death we bought it new, and we have beaten it to death. My friends have used it, and it has just been everywhere. So you know I like that machine. But as far as doing a different HMF exhaust on it, yes, you will need to rejet it pretty much you're going to need to rejet it because you start flowing more air, it needs more fuel, so it doesn't lean out. But fortunately, the carb is set pretty rich, from the get-go. Now you can just change your air fuel screw, bring it out another half a turn, and that'll get you in the ballpark. But you're going to get more performance if you go ahead and rejet it. Change that main out and get a little bit more fuel down into that throat. Man, y'all going to make me go past my 30-minute mark. I'm liking it. Burke, the cylinder and everything is original. Do you have any other guesses, tips? I followed your videos to assemble it. In your videos, the chain is pretty loose before putting it on the cam.
He said he did pull out his
The tensioner. But he's saying that it's still too tight. All right. Are you sure you're getting that tensioner in there correctly? Because you should be able to. It should be fully retracted when you bolt it down, and then you're supposed to pop the inside of that the chain to get it to release. Because there's just like a little hair trigger clip that holds that in place before it releases. That would be the only thing I could think of. I think that's what's tripping you up. You may have it retracted, and as you're going in with your screws to mount the tensioner, it may release, and you're just not catching it, and then it's just really over tightening it because it's already. If it releases and you've only got a gap like that before it flushes, or if it goes flush or bottoms out, that's too much. It needs to be fully retracted, bolted down, and then you tap it with a screwdriver to release it. What's that?
He said it was completely out. So.
Well, it's supposed to be completely in.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be all the way in. I thought we showed that.
I think so too.
Go back and watch that one again. And good grief, if I need to, I'll order another tensioner and just show you, do a quick video on how to just retract it. Was it that? It was that one I got so aggravated with the original one. Didn't I like beat it with a hammer and go order another one? I lost it. So I know firsthand how frustrating these little things can be.
That one might have flown across the room.
That probably left a divot in a wall somewhere. Paul came back. Judy, she is 82 and diabetic and has been poked so many times since November. She had many strokes also. Well, Paul, I'm so sorry, but I will definitely put Judy on my prayer list. All right. Ex-war child, Jade Walters. Thank you, John. You're welcome. Ex-war child. I got a stock Grizzly 660, and I would like to go with a high compression piston. What would be your recommendation? Well, my go-to, as always, is the Wiseco, and I'm pretty sure they make a kit for that one. Matter of fact, Trace, those boxes up there. Yeah, I think we actually have one up here. That was just a demo box for it was for the call center when they were learning about Wiseco. Yeah. So I think I have one. It may be a higher compression one. So I'm pretty sure the Wiseco makes one for it. Yeah. All right, one more, then I think we're done. Javier Lang. Good afternoon, John. I have a 22 Raptor 700R SE with full Yoshimura exhaust system. What program would you recommend? Thank you. There's a couple of different programmers out there. I mean, you can go for a full-blown, they just reflash your ECU, but just doing the exhaust like that you've done, just go with the, oh, good grief, my mind just left me. DynoJet, good grief, John. Go with the DynoJet. They have the most comprehensive, ready-to-go program that you can dump in there. And remember, it's not a full-blown ECU tune. It is I don't want to call it a liar, but a translator that adapts the values that it's being read and then changes that accordingly to where you can get a little bit more bang out of your machine. Which that full Yoshi system, that should be impressive. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it a day there and head to the barn. I've had enough of this place this week. Love it, but I'm tired. So just want to thank everybody for coming out and sending me some great questions today. I like it when it goes back and forth that viciously. Makes that 30 minutes or 35 minutes just fly by. All right, kids. Well, everybody have a great weekend, a great week, and God willing, we will see you back here in a little bit more completed studio Friday at 3 o'clock. Y'all take care.